Glorious. Glorious. In today's video, I want to discuss the power of silence and how silence is a weapon that can be utilized. You know, it's a tool, very useful. Now, I don't know what the song name is, but I know this saying was popularized by Lil Wayne. The saying, real G's move in silence like lasagna. Now, I don't think the way he meant it is how I meant it, but I could definitely connect that to what I'm about to say. When I say silence is your weapon, what I'm really talking about is to be unreactive, to not give anything away. But that takes discipline, it takes work, it takes self-mastery. And the reason why it's a useful tool is because when you're in an interaction with someone, you know, whether it's you're on a date or maybe you're going on a business meeting, you're meeting someone new, it's mostly useful for when you're first meeting someone. If you have emotional discipline and stay unreactive, and when someone asks you a question, pause, you know, think. That's one thing, is you actually give yourself time to think when you allow for silence in the interaction. Another thing is people will reveal themselves and what they're thinking when you stay silent. I've noticed, because I kind of unconsciously did it. I've always had no problem with silence or awkward silences. But people will get angsty, people will jump, you know, if you don't immediately answer a question. So right there you can see, well, this kind of person is antsy, they're nervous, they're easily stressed. That's a read. You can make reads on people, you know. And recently I've been listening to a lot of and learning a lot about Carl Jung, Jungian psychology. And what he says is, what people don't want to see in themselves, they will project onto others. And that's essentially what you're doing when you remain stoic and silent. Not forever, but give yourself a pause before answering a question. Or sometimes a question doesn't really need an answer with words. You can just reply with silence, because people will essentially what they don't want to see within themselves, they'll project onto others. By that is, when you hold the silence, you hold a mirror to people. And this is especially useful if you're in some kind of confrontation, because most people need a reaction, an external reaction to validate their own existence, to feel seen, to feel heard. So if someone's really in your face, or they're just trying to get a rise at you, trying to get an emotional reaction out of you, and you give them nothing, there's nowhere for them to go. It will most likely just completely diffuse the situation, because you're meeting fire with water rather than fire with fire. You're killing the chemical reaction, essentially. There's definitely more I wanted to say. But in order to be comfortable with silence, like I said earlier, most people need external reactions to validate their own existence. Yeah, that takes inner work, which most people never truly do, because in the modern world, where we're constantly bombarded with distractions and various things to stimulate us, you know, whether it's social media or watching the TV or just going out, hanging out with friends. And no one ever gives themselves that time, that period of isolation, distraction-free time to have some dialogue with yourself. You know, when you're out with your mates or you're listening to music, everything entering your mind, it's all from the external. You're not actually giving yourself the ability to think, if you know what I mean. You're completely distracting your brains. You're not having any kind of conversation with yourself. And the reason most people don't do that is because they don't want to hear the truth. Because when you communicate with yourself, there can be no lies. You have to be 100% honest. You can't trick yourself. You can't put on a facade or a mask like we can do when we talk with other people. You know, you have to be completely honest with yourself. That's where you grow the most, but it's one of the hardest things to do, to be able to just sit in a room or just do an activity with no music on, nothing, no distractions. But it's a healthy thing to be able to do activities on your own. Go grab a coffee somewhere, go to the beach, go for a swim. You know, you don't always need to be in company. I think the best way to be, and it's also, I would argue, it's how you build the most attractive quality, is to be good with your own company. You have to be able to not need anyone. Prepare to have, it's lovely to have people in your life, but people are almost, they're very attracted to someone, not just in a, you know, male-female dynamic, but in all senses. People really they respect someone who doesn't need external validation. And how you develop that is by spending time on your own. But I'm going to wrap this video up. See you in the next video. Cheers.